What's up, man? Steven Tyler, just want to drop a little metaphysics. Today I just want to talk about the sun and like what we are, not who we are. I think it's important for you to discover what you are, because the who is just a title. You know, you can name someone human, or you can name a Homo sapien, or you'll never have really understanding of what you are. So, for what I've been studying on metaphysics, scientists are right about evolution, but they always try to make it seem like it's random. But what makes you think for things to come about in fruition like it is, that it wasn't conscious intervention that already had it mapped out what it wanted to become? For instance, you know, if you want to go by the timeline, basically we the last thing coming as far as, you know, species on this earth. But how do you not know that same hydrogen, oxygen molecule or atom or whatever, you know what I'm saying? How you not know that it already knew in like 300 million years this is what my final form is going to be? Just like you'll lay out a blueprint for a Toyota Camry and you'll make the car. And at first, when the car is getting put together, it doesn't look like much because you're still putting it together. But when you finally assemble that car and make it, now it looks like a Toyota Camry. Well, the same way is true of ourselves and our body. Just how our body replicates the universe and the solar system, as far as, you know, how the blood circulates and the planets rotate, how each cell is circular, and every atom is circular, and the sun is circular. Everything follows certain patterns. So what I'm trying to say is, everything that's manifest in the universe manifests in us, as above, so below. So it's not really a question of how do we get here. It's a fact that we've always been here. We just take on different forms and manifest and materialize. The only reason why human beings are so special out of all animals is because we have the highest form of consciousness. Consciousness is the closest thing to being God or being a God. The fact that you can think, your thoughts and your mind make you divine. That's what makes us being the creators. Everything that you see in front of me was made by us, but it was first in the non-physical realm. So we take things and we think about them, and then we produce them. So in that essence, we're taking nothing and making it into something. So when you study up on the sun and you study on the patterns of the seasons, then you'll realize that we're a lot more connected to the sun than people give credit for. For instance, the sun's rise and the sunset was seen by the Egyptians as being metaphysical to death. When the sun rises, you're born. When the sun sets, you die. Just like you open your eyes for the first time, it's like the light coming out of the darkness into the light. And then when you die, you're dead. So, you know, sun sets. But the thing that the Egyptians always noticed, and it never failed, is the sun always arose the following day. So they noticed that patterns in nature already showed that you were always immortal to begin with. But immortality is not a long, far-stretched strand of, let's say, living for 100 trillion years. Immortality is really a breakdown of cycles repeating themselves. So with that said, it's not like, oh, we're going to live forever, now we'll never die. It's more like you can never fully exterminate and die, but you lose this physical vessel because it wears and tears in this physical reality. But guess what? Consciousness just keeps shifting. And then that consciousness comes to another form of a baby. That baby then develops personality based on the appearance and genetics. But all genetics, even gene makeup, has the memories of the universe. Every bit of information that ever happened in the universe is in your DNA. It's in your chromosomes. So you literally have the entire map of the universe in you. But no one wants you to know this because they know what type of power you would lose when someone loses the fear of dying, because they know they've been part of this planet forever. You think it's a coincidence the planet is 70% water and your body is 70% water? It's not a coincidence. That's just nature manifesting itself again in the physical body. And it's following the same patterns. You drink water, what do? You urinate. The sun absorbs the water and then it rains. And the cycle repeats itself. And the planet will die eventually, and then another planet will be born again. The same thing with the stars. The stars start off just like a cell. And then they multiply and become big, just like cells. And then eventually that star will die. You will die. And then that star, the same materials come back, recombine, and form a whole another star. So is that star really gone? It was temporarily, but it comes right back. And if you know that you're made of the same hydrogens that's in the universe, the same carbon, the same elements that's in the universe, and the universe is perpetual, the universe is forever, why would you think you have an end? You have transitions, but you will never have an end. So you gotta keep that in mind. So that's just a little bit of black science, man. Study Kemet, ancient Egypt. Research some of the stuff I'm saying if you don't believe, but it's a fact. The summer, the seasons are living proof. The fall, symbolically you dying because your hair starts to fall, just like the leaves. The winter is symbolic of you dying because the winter is white snow. Now your hair turns white. And then those seasons are gone. But then when you die in the winter, spring returns and you come back with new life as a newborn baby. And I know some people that's hard to comprehend, but I challenge you to think. Think outside of the box of what we've been told and what the traditional stories that we've been led to believe. And just think about that. You are the universe. You always have been. You always will continue to be. There is no end. You just transition. Consciousness will always be around. Because it had to be consciousness for this to even create itself. But you don't have to attribute that consciousness to some all-powerful in the sky. No. Consciousness is forever present. It's always been there and always will be. And it's never going anywhere. So I think that's something I would lean towards more of me being a product of consciousness creating itself. And now that we're in this step where we're really thinking, now we can start to really observe and see that indeed, even the atheist has to agree to some extent that the way that everything functions and for it to be hospitable here on this planet has been some type of consciousness. And if not, how did you become consciousness? It ain't just out of nowhere. It has to always been there. You can't create consciousness. Why? Because consciousness is not tangible. You can't touch consciousness. Like, oh, here's consciousness. You can't grab consciousness. So if you can't grab consciousness, it's part of the stuff that's for spiritual, meaning it's never manifested, so it couldn't have a beginning. Consciousness has always been here. When it finds a vessel, this body now can express itself. It can dunk a basketball, it can play, it can swim, it can jump, it can run, it can do whatever it wants because now it has a vessel to express itself. But when that vessel leaves, and the consciousness just goes, but it's never going to terminate. And it just keeps incarnating to another body. The Easterners told us that a long time ago. The ancients knew this, and the ancient Egyptians knew this. It's not really a hard concept to grasp. If they say there's nothing new under the sun, what makes you think you're new? You're not new. You just return it, and then you'll go back, and you'll come back. They told you that on Pocahontas. That's how deep it is. They tell all these stories and they won't even tell you the real meaning. In Pocahontas, they said we are all connected to each other in a circle, in a hoop that never ends. It told you right there that you're immortal. The circle is the number one symbol for immortality or infinity. It has no beginning and no end. And everything that embodies that circle, like we talked about, the cells, the atoms, the sun, the earth, all these things are in a circular formation. Because that's how nature expresses itself in geometric patterns. But that's sacred geometry, that's a whole nother story I ain't even gonna get into right now. But to summarize, you are everything that ever existed, and you are energy and consciousness, conscious energy. and there's really no limitations to what we can really do. So the mind is everything. Mind over matter, of course, because mind creates matter. Never been the other way around. Mind creates matter. So of course it's mind over matter. Whatever mind can create, mind will make matter. Mind created this phone. Mind makes the matter. Matter never makes mind. Mind makes matter.